Whenever you guys are ready to get started,
Rebecca, is it okay if we get started?
Totally up to you.
Okay, I'm going to get started. And I'm going to just say welcome to everybody to our Health Senior Social Services Committee. We have been putting on a series of health Zooms, especially to deal with the equality in health care. This is our third Zoom, and we have a couple of more, and we were just so lucky to have two wonderful speakers. This is going to be on mental health. I just want to see if somebody is getting, Rebecca's here, good. This will be on mental health, and specifically for seniors. We have two wonderful speakers that are here. Dr. Ronnie Swift has actually been with us one other time, and it was a wonderful meeting, and I was so pleased that she would come back again. She is the chairman of psychiatry and the medical director at the Metropolitan Hospital, which is just slightly north of us. It's part of the health and hospital system. She is also a professor and associate professor of psychiatry at the New York Medical School. I think I messed that up a little bit, but I hope that's okay.
Okay, it's New York Medical College. It's fine.
New York Medical College, great. And she will talk to us as a psychiatrist about what she has seen, particularly during this COVID time. Robin Strasham has been around also with us and is the volunteer coordinator at this wonderful organization called Search and Care, which is in our district, that has done this unbelievable work with our seniors, and particularly during our COVID period. I will say I get the emails from Robin about what's going on. She forwards it to me, and a couple of times I needed a tissue after reading some of the work that went on. She will talk about some of the services that were there, that have been there and have helped serve and helped the mental health of seniors along the way. But before we get started, I don't need to introduce our wonderful Assemblyman. Rebecca Seawright is here, and thank you so much, Rebecca, for coming here to give us a few words and introduce yourself. Rebecca, I know, has one of her town halls that she's presenting, so thank you for giving us this time beforehand, Rebecca.
Well, thank you, Barbara. It's great to be here this evening and to see all of you. I just want to thank the two co-chairs, Barbara Rutter and Rebecca Dangor, for all that you do as co-chair of this very important committee. Just this evening, Governor Cuomo signed our financial literacy bill, requiring the New York State Department of Financial Services to provide the department's website information on financial literacy and consumer awareness. This was a bill that we worked very hard to get passed in both the Assembly and the Senate. So we're pleased that he signed it today on the 10th day after it was transmitted to him. Our economy is only as strong as the collective financial health of individual consumers. As a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, we are facing parallel health and economic crises. This legislation establishes basic consumer awareness and financial education for all New York consumers. We want to empower consumers to fight the economic impacts of COVID-19. Yesterday, we watched as the New York City nurse received the first coronavirus vaccination in the state and in the nation. Today, we held a press conference attended by Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney in front of Mary Manning Walsh, where we distributed over 7,000 N95 face masks, as well as at MSK and Lenox Hill Northwell Hospital, where they were administering the first vaccination at Lenox Hill Northwell today. Indoor dining in New York City is on pause as new cluster zones are being determined based upon new projections for hospital capacity. The vaccine is here, but the crisis is not over. We must all continue to do our part to remain vigilant. This morning, as I mentioned, the 7,000 masks that we delivered to the healthcare facilities were for the frontline healthcare workers that were receiving the vaccine. We also dropped off unwrapped toys to the New York Children's Center on East 70th Street. The mayor has warned that we may see restrictions beyond the pause of indoor dining to protect the healthcare workers and their patients. In any region in the state, it's projected to hit 90% hospital capacity within 21 days. The governor will impose a red zone shutdown. This means non-essential businesses, schools, and restaurant table service will close in a given region for an indefinite period of time. We're hearing that Congress could pass the next COVID relief package in two parts. The package reportedly includes a $748 billion for services like healthcare and schools, to be followed by $160 billion for local governments. The pandemic unemployment assistance is set to expire at the end of the month for 1.2 million New Yorkers. It is clear that Congress needs to act to provide COVID relief. There's so much unknown about relief that it's on its way. It's critical to understand your rights on emergency benefits to which you're entitled. Tonight, we're hosting at 7 p.m. a town hall where we'll hear from experts to inform constituents on their rights during the COVID-19 pandemic. We ask that you please stay in touch with our office for updates. Check out our Twitter, See Right for New York, or call our office at 212-288-4607. Ask us how to sign up for our weekly e-news, which includes regular updates on COVID and new guidance for city and state regulations. Please join us at one of our upcoming events. Our next face covering giveaway is weekly. It's on Thursday from 12 to 2 at our community office. Due to the impending snowstorm, we are canceling our face giveaway, mask giveaway this week. However, if you need a face mask or hand sanitizer, please call our office and we'll be happy to provide that to you. Please consider our office as a resource for your housing needs. Contact our office to reserve your spot. Tuesday, December 22nd is our next free pro bono housing legal clinic. And we encourage you to get tested. Call 212-COVID-19 for more information and to find a site near you, or call our office. Stay safe, wash your hands frequently, keep your social distance, and wear your face covering. And again, I want to thank all of you for attending this event tonight. It's so important to focus on our senior population and mental health. I know we've had Robin on our town hall, and I see so many of you this evening. And so again, good luck with your forum tonight, and thank you for really focusing on this issue. It's so important.
Thank you so much, Rebecca.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you. Dr. Swift, would you want to get started?
Sure.
Great.
Can I have the first slide, please?
Yes, let me get that going.
Okay.
All right, everybody can see it, I hope.
Yep, great. Thanks.
Yes, you can go to the next one. Thank you. So COVID-19 is definitely having an impact on the elderly. For those of us who are in that group, it's definitely had an effect on almost everyone I know to some extent. And it seems worse for many of the elderly people where they felt isolated to begin with, and this only makes it worse. So COVID-19 is instilling fear and suffering for older people, and this is true across the world. Every article I read talks about that. The fatality rates for those over 80 are 5 times the global average. That's a very, very dramatic difference. And the broader effects are denied health care. A lot of people are saying, even in the suburbs and in the other parts of the city, that they can't get their regular health care because the offices are closed. And that's making them even more anxious about where are they going to get care and how are they going to take care of themselves. And neglect and abuse, we know that as people get sick, it's hard to find people that you can replace them with. And also, we know a lot of parents are leaving the workforce because they have children at home if there's no school. And that's been a continuing struggle for everybody. And a lot of grandparents are winding up taking care of their grandchildren, which is not an easy task. There's been an increase in poverty, and unemployment. People who thought they have wonderful businesses, all of a sudden those businesses were closed down and they're unable to even pay their bills. And this is something they've never experienced before. They were often in the position of helping others, and now they find they need help themselves. So even those people who used to be able to take care of themselves can't now. And it's obviously had a tremendous, tremendous impact on overall well-being and mental health. There's the trauma of stigma and discrimination, and elderly people often feel worthless anyway. And this has just made it significantly, significantly worse because their interactions are completely cut off. And especially more recently, as things have gotten worse within the city and within the country, people are not socializing. The holidays, some of the holidays came and went. Thanksgiving, there were lots of people who were home alone. And that was not out of choice. They felt it was the only thing that was the right and important thing to do to stay away from other people. Older people who have strong resilience and positivity contribute greatly to society because they do multiple roles. As I said, many of them all of a sudden find themselves as caregivers to little children, which they haven't done in years and years. They're volunteers, they're community leaders. Some people are just calling friends just to give them a lift and to have somebody to communicate with and know that what they're doing is important. Women are definitely overrepresented among both older people and the paid and unpaid caregivers who look after them. And 8 out of 10 COVID reported in the US have been in adults over 65 and older. And that's a very, very important statistic. Next slide, please. So older adults are at a significantly higher risk of mortality and severe disease after infection. And what we're learning is that a lot of people have residual symptoms even after they're, quote, well. Their fever's gone away, their cough has gone away, but maybe now they have neurological symptoms, or maybe now they have more breathing problems. And this is just a part of the illness that we don't thoroughly understand yet, and we're just beginning to. But there is help, and over time, in many people, it gets better. 66% of people aged 70 and over have at least one underlying condition causing them to be at increased risk for the serious impact of COVID-19. And again, age discrimination in medical care, in triage, in life-saving treatment. Older adults think about this a lot and think about, well, if things are going to be rationed, where am I going to be in that list? And that's something that really makes a lot of people extremely, extremely upset. There are also increased instances of neglect and mistreatment in care homes and in institutions. And those in dangerous situations, I mean, for most of us, we can't even imagine what refugee camps are like, or informal settlements and prisons. There's overcrowding, there's limited access to things. It really makes a difference. Older persons are also among the caregivers responding to the pandemic. As most of you heard, they were asking for retired doctors and nurses and other healthcare workers who might be willing to join the workforce again. And the vast majority of women are in home-based careers providing care for older people especially within the healthcare system and as home health aides and many, many other jobs. Next slide. So if we look at risk for older persons during COVID, social and economic well-being, access to healthcare services, social networks, and jobs are really limited. And the ones where they're physicians or they're providers or they're therapists or somebody who's very important and very connected to making them feel good and better, when they become unavailable, that makes it so much harder for people to cope. Those who receive care at home are twice as likely, such as women over 80 years old, are twice as likely to live alone. And living alone makes it even more difficult for people. And prolonged isolation obviously seriously affects the mental health of everyone, but particularly older people. And it's also in the last 10 years, perhaps, older people in the labor force has increased more, and this makes a considerable impact on income and unemployment. So overall mental health, loneliness causes physical distancing as well as anxiety. And that's across the board. There's nobody who's really immune to that. It impacts everybody's life in some way. And depending upon what other responsibilities you have, and if you have a secure pension, so at least you can pay your bills, which is not true for the majority of people in this country, then that's a problem. And if we look at the misinformation and the uncertainty and hysteria that's gone on about a lot of this, that also feeds on people. And sometimes when people watch television over and over and over again and hear the same distressing message, it truly impacts them. And unfortunately, post 9/11, we actually saw people who developed PTSD. They were nowhere near the World Trade Center, but they watched it 24/7, and that gave them PTSD. So one has to be very careful. And if you're alone, listening to the radio or the news is something that one would naturally do. But it just makes people are with information overload at this point. Next slide, please. The United Nations policy brief identifies both immediate and long-term policy changes to ensure that difficult healthcare decisions affecting the elderly are really guided by the commitment to take care of everybody and to take care of everybody in the same way. And we in the New York City Health and Hospital System really believe that and live it every single day. We take care of everybody who comes to our doors, regardless of their ability to pay. And we're very, very proud of that. We also strengthen social inclusion during physical distancing, as restrictions can definitely lead to disruption of care and support. Social distancing is important, but social support measures can be implemented that help. If somebody shows an older person how to use a computer, how to do a Zoom with a friend, with a loved one, with a relative, all of these things can make a huge difference in the quality of life that the person experiences every single day. Next slide, please. And if you fully incorporate a focus on the elderly into the socioeconomic and humanistic response to COVID-19, you have to address it in both the crisis and the recovery phase. And if we invest in universal health care and attention to social protections, strengthen the national and international framework about human rights for the elderly, and increase participation by the elderly to ensure their full inclusion in shaping and policies that affect their lives. And sometimes ageism becomes a factor, and the ageism and stigma must be addressed, that other younger, much younger people feel like they can make decisions for older people who have no idea what their lives have been like. And that's very, very important. When a group of people see people much, much younger than they are entering the workforce, and then they feel as though they really don't have a place there anymore. And that makes people feel worthless. Next slide, please. So if we look at COVID-19 and older people, the pandemic may significantly lower older person's income and living standards. And that's what we're seeing in many of the middle-class neighborhoods as well. Somebody who owns a business, whether it's a successful business or just making ends meet, it was a business. And now, if they have to close down because they're a non-essential business, they have nothing. And that's very, very distressing. Already, less than 20% of older persons of retirement age receive a pension. So if we think about that, it is not easy to amass enough income to live on for a long period of time. And I know this is probably something that Robin will talk about how helping people with money management and things like that, because this may be something that people have never faced before. They don't know how to handle. And this is also true if a spouse dies. A lot of people have never written a check in their lives. They don't know how to manage money. They don't know how to invest. They don't know any of those things. So it's really very important. And when we look at mental health, physical distancing can take a heavy toll on mental health. We know that. Living alone, being more digitally included than others, the risks are still higher for older people. And older persons are not just victims, they're also responding. They're healthcare workers, they're police officers, they're EMTs, and they're definitely among essential providers. And life and death fatality rates, as I said before, are 5 times higher than the global average. And an estimated 66% of people aged 70 and over have at least one underlying health condition. And we really don't understand. There can be people who have almost no additional healthcare risk factors, and yet they can die of COVID. But certainly in the elderly, if you look at the statistics, they're at much greater risk. And vulnerability, essential care that older persons often rely on, is under pressure. Among half of COVID-19 patients in Europe occurred in long-term care settings. And we know that that's true of long-term care settings. That's one of the reasons they've been prioritized for vaccines. And older women often provide care for older relatives, increasing their risk for infection. And abuse and neglect, in 2017, 1 in 6 older persons were subject to abuse. With lockdowns and reduced care, violence against older people is on the rise. So these are some very important factors. Next slide, please. Coping mechanisms and skills. What can the elderly do to help themselves, and what others can do to help people get through the pandemic? Next slide, please. Provide support for seniors who may be suffering from loneliness during isolation. You can ask, are you eating? Are you sleeping? Are you having mood changes? Because we know in the elderly, we don't diagnose depression the same way that we diagnose it in younger people. In older people, it often presents as somatic symptoms, as physical symptoms. The person who goes from one physician to another, from one provider to another, with all kinds of things. And the bottom line is sometimes to an older person, it may be that depression is seen as something that they cannot accept. A lot of cultures don't accept depression as an illness, even though the brain is just as much of an organ as the liver. And discovering creative ways to connect, again, setting up recurrent Zoom meetings with friends and families, or just sending somebody a grocery delivery with something that's a special food for them. And certainly within families, I have seen that be very, very effective and well received, literally almost bringing tears to someone's eyes. Next slide, please. So coping skills, the 4 M's: mindfulness, awareness from paying attention, focusing on the present, and reacting non-judgmentally to events. This is effective in improving resilience and decreasing anxiety and self-focus on the elderly. And how do you practice mindfulness? You stop and take note of how each breath feels as it travels in and out. Focus on tastes and textures during each meal. And also throughout the day, pause and identify. Just stop and see what you're experiencing and really experience it as opposed to just going through the motions of experiencing it. And meaningful connection, the ability to be emotionally vulnerable and open with someone, as well as displaying affection. And one of the things is that most of us are used to hugging, handshaking, all kinds of physical contact. That's what humans do. And yet now we can't do that. And you talk to the kids and what they learn in school is a virtual hug and a virtual hi and things like that. So it's a whole new way of communicating with people that we have not really experienced. And just remember that in the current situation that we're in, that's as good as it gets. And it's not kind if you go hug them with the possibility of transmitting disease to them. So it's much better to do your virtual hugs and things like that. Again, next slide, please. If you can connect with people, that's wonderful. Physical movement helps decrease the risk of health issues faced by seniors, heart disease, high blood pressure, arthritis, and it also improves balance and coordination. And we see a lot of older people who fall. That's one of the greatest causes of morbidity and mortality in older people. And also osteoporosis and things like that. So you want to increase movement as much as you can. And also mental exercises, doing crossword puzzles, brain games, stimulation can increase attention, verbal fluency, and certainly cognitive areas. Next slide, please. And if we look at practical suggestions and mental health of the elderly, stop reading, watching TV, and listening to the news, including social media, because as I said, after a certain point, it just makes people really upset. And if you hear something and it's not from a reliable source, don't pass it along to everybody else. There are all kinds of rumors out there that the new vaccine is going to kill everyone. That's absolutely not true. Somebody started that, and unfortunately it gets publicized, and then people who really need it and could benefit from it don't take the vaccine. So there are a lot of things that we have to be very, very careful of. And give attention to one's own needs. What do you need as a person? What makes you feel better? And it's very important to refrain from discriminating or blaming the specific individuals or groups for the infection. And we have certainly certainly seen that over the past several months where it's attached to one group or another group. And just try to maintain contact with friends and family to whatever extent you can, in whatever way you can. That's very, very helpful. And be informed of where and how to receive counseling. There's so many free counseling sites out there. And we at Metropolitan Hospital have a clinic where people can be helped. And I know there are all kinds of hotlines. So no one should feel that they have to be out there alone. And those with disabilities, such as mental illness, may be particularly vulnerable in an emergency. And what we've done is, for people who can't come in, we've done televisits. And what we've done is increase the number of televisits from when they used to come in. If they used to come in once a week, we try to do 2 televisits a week so that they really feel more connected and we can help them as much as possible. And also social supports, whatever makes somebody comfortable, and physical health, maintaining a daily schedule and also exercise pattern, and have regular habits to maintain good health. And make time for leisure activity. Don't feel that you have to be cleaning every minute if you're at home or doing something for someone else. Sometimes it's important to do something for yourself, and certainly to get enough sleep. Next slide, please. So basically, what I'd like to also do is to let you know that we are gearing up to give healthcare providers the vaccine as it becomes available. And once we do that for first responders and people in our hospital, frontline staff, we will be opening up that to the public. And so stay tuned, and Metropolitan Hospital will be doing that. The other thing I would say is we're in the process of talking about how to best do this, and our public affairs division will be advertising that as soon as it comes available. We also have an annex where you can get tested for COVID, and that's on, we do about 200 a day, and it doesn't cost anything. The insurance is billed if you have insurance, but if you don't have insurance, you can still get the test. And that may be very important. But one thing I really want to emphasize is, if you were around somebody today and you want to get a COVID test, wait 3 to 5 days, because if you get it tomorrow, it might be negative when it's not really negative. And if you have symptoms, it's very important not to just go get a test. You might need to go to a physician or go to the emergency room. So we don't want to mix those populations. And the other thing that we want to make people aware of is all of our services at the hospital are currently open, and there's the ability to have in-person visits. So if you're struggling and you're not happy with telehealth, we certainly can help you with some appointments. And certainly if somebody wants a mental health appointment, I'm going to give you my email, which is swiftr@nychhc.org. And you can just email me and I will pass it along to someone who will return your call and talk to you about what we have available on a more individualized basis. So I want to thank all of you for being here today, and my best wishes to everyone for the holiday season, and we will all get through this together. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much, Dr. Swift.
Thank you.
I think we should hold questions until after Search and Care, until Robin speaks, and then we'll have both. I have a lot, we'll say, and that was wonderful. Thank you. Robin?
Hi, good evening, everybody. Barbara and team, thank you so much for having me. Will, it's always a pleasure to be where you're at.
Same.
Thank you. I'm Robin Stration. I'm with a small community social service agency called Search and Care, which was started in 1972 at a church on 88th Street when their minister was making home visits. And he found so many older people who were at risk of falling through the cracks. There were no services at the time. And that's why he started Search and Care. The city was, at the time they thought, in really a desperate situation. There was no funding for everything. And with a grant, he hired his first social worker. Her name was Sue Chandler. And together they created a mission, which is our mission today, which is to help people over the age of 60 remain in the familiarity of their own home, in the community that they know and cherish, as long as we try to help them stay there as long as safely feasible, with a variety of free social services that are geared to support them to age in place. Talking briefly about what we did during COVID, we're small, we're somewhat innovative. And in addition to social workers providing care management services, one of the things that sets us apart, and as Dr. Swift alluded to, is a variety of financial supports. Why is that important? Because the first social worker realized that if your mission is to help people stay at home, it behooves you to make sure that their rent is paid. So that's why we first got into financial support services. And we have a variety of services depending on how much a client does or doesn't need. We started a service about a decade ago called Money Matters, primarily with retired financial pros who would go into your home, help you organize your papers. Some people really have difficulty understanding what is a bill, what is not a bill. It could be a letter saying you want $1 million or you owe $1 million. That piece of paper, especially to somebody who's bipolar, is meaningless. So that's why we needed to do this. When we interview somebody who's new to us, we look at them holistically. What is your physical health history? What is your financial health? What is your mental health? It's a holistic approach. And I would say that I know that there are some people who are online tonight that I personally invited, and however you got here, whether you're a client or you're a volunteer, God bless you. And I thank you. Whether I know you through Community Board 11, hello, Nye, thank you so much. It's about community. And we really harness a lot of different people from the community to make things for us work. We're a team of maybe 12 people. So it takes a lot of people sometimes to support communities of over 1,000 individuals, especially in the biggest part of our area, which is East Harlem, and we're multicultural, et cetera. So fast forward to today, there's no volunteers going into people's homes to keep them company. There are no social workers going into people's homes to do assessments, checking in on them. How is your home care worker doing? All of our interactions are telephonic at this point. Some of them are virtual, but the majority are not. Why? Because our clients, we hope our clients can master a cell phone, and that's basically their tool. So that's just the reality. We were very lucky to get a grant to help with grocery delivery during this period. Our clients are predominantly homebound to begin with, and many of them did not want their home care service to continue. They did not want people coming in off the subways, question mark about how much they are or are not bringing into the apartment with them. So as difficult as it may be for somebody to have to make their own meals or clean their own apartments or dress themselves or bathe themselves, they're scared of contracting the virus. And that's why those decisions were made. And I think we could all understand that. So you have an already somewhat isolated population becoming increasingly isolated. And I personally have attended many of our elected officials' town halls recently on mental health. And one of the things that resonated with me was, I think it was from Columbia, talking about how this is really testing our resilience. I mean, most of us thought that 9/11 was the cataclysmic moment of our lifetime, right? How do you predict the unpredictable? Well, we're in one of those situations. And how often do you get used to trying to predict the unpredictable? It's pretty impossible. So I think the question remains, how do you adapt? And I think for many people as they get older, Dr. Swift, you probably know the answer better than I do, but it may become harder to adapt. At least it seems that way to me.
Mhm.
It has nothing to do with your economic status. It has nothing to do with your career path. It really has to do with your makeup and your fortitude. And so where we're best at is trying to anticipate impediments to our clients being able to continue to remain at home and ride this out with some sort of semblance of peace of mind and sanity. And how we fashion that together, I think, is really what we're challenged to do right now. As I started to say, we had grants to help provide grocery deliveries, and that's really great, because as wonderful as Meals on Wheels are, we had so many people asking us or saying to us, I don't need all this food that they're sending me. It's nothing that I would ever eat. Whereas what we were able to do was send a person in East Harlem what culturally would typically be on their menu versus somebody in Yorkville who may be of maybe European descent originally, what would be on their menu. And that's one of the hallmarks of our agency as well, tailoring our services to the individual. We're not, very little about us is cookie cutter. So Will, if you could, if it's possible to see the first slide, that thank you so much. What we've done is we've adapted our groups, which were in person prior to this, even though we're not a senior center. We've adapted them to becoming telephonic. And this is something that's brand new, reading room. I think a lot of people are book lovers, but wouldn't it be nice to have a community of people who have a like interest? And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to give people a distraction from this horrible news that's just nonstop and just getting worse and worse and worse, with something that is positive. And it is definitely positive when you find people of a like mind, even if it is telephonically or by Zoom. So Reading Room is a weekly group, late morning, which I think is ideal for many people because a lot of our clients like to sleep in. And it started with the facilitator, who has a wonderful name, Eureka, very, very positive name, reading short stories. I've been told that eventually the group will also read for themselves and then discuss, but how lovely to be distracted. I mean, all of us were probably read to by our parents as a young child. So it's still nice to have that happen in your lifetime. And I think it's also great for people who may have any sort of visual disability to be read to. There's no stress there. If you have any questions at any time about anything I say tonight or any of our groups, our phone number is there, 212-289-5300. You can ask specifically for information about our groups. You can ask for me. If you want to ask about other parts of Search and Care, I'm happy to connect you. May I please see the next, Will? This next slide should be about our groups in general. Yes, these are groups that are currently running, which have now gone from meeting in person to being on the phone. Lunch Bunch is a group that started at the church we were founded, Holy Trinity Church. One of the nice things about that particular group is something that's called medical wrap. We have the clinical nurse, Joan Dietrich, who answers people questions about medications. I know a lot of people take meds and have no idea why they're taking them. When I was studying geriatrics to get this particular job, I asked my husband's grandmother, who lived to 102, about the medications that she had in her cabinet. And she insisted that her Valium was her blood pressure medication. I mean, you can sort of see the connection there, but a lot of people don't really know why they're taking what they're taking. If there's interactions, many of us do not have one doctor that oversees every aspect of our health, and that's how that happens. And that's why our nurse is very helpful. Tea and Creativity started out as a craft group. It's funded by the Brick Presbyterian Church. They thought it would be wonderful for women to continue the traditions of sewing. We've taken that to a bigger dimension. And right now it is a fabulous study in art history. Our facilitator, that is her major. She knows about world art, and it's a fun exploration. And it's also telephonic. The Pet Pro workshops, well, I lead those. I happen to have 3 cats. I understand the need for pets right now. Our pets are probably one of the most important aspects of our clients' life. Many of them say that they're helping them get through this pandemic. But we provide educational workshops so we can make people become better owners. But how nice is it? Think about this for older people who are alone, to be on the phone with other dog owners or other cat owners who share the same interests. And I also learned something really fascinating. We had a behaviorist about cat behavior. She's only one of 65 vets in the whole country that is certified in this. And one client said that her cat loves to eat plastic bags, so that whenever they go shopping, they have to hide them right away. And the vet explained that eating something inedible is called pica, and it's actually a form of OCD. Who knew our pets can have OCD? So now we should be worrying about our pets' mental health as well. Mondays, we alternate between a morning meditation group and an afternoon vocal singing group. Joanne is actually, I'll share this with you, our controller. She has been studying meditation and yoga for years. It is a delightful way, even if you tune in telephonically, to just, as Dr. Swift said, focus on something else other than the buzzing that's in your ear. It's such a great way to decompress. Food for thought. Well, food for thought and our nutrition group are both led by our nutritionist, Kristen. The nutrition group is really about educating people and answering their questions. Like, for example, what is turmeric and why do I need it? As well as how do I create a balanced meal for myself? And food for thought is really a great little way to get into reminiscences. For example, I'm going to ask you a question that hopefully will put you in the place as if you were in that group. Think about your early childhood memories of your first either Christmas or Hanukkah. What was on the table? What was your mother wearing? What did the kitchen smell like? And that is what food for thought is about. Grupo de Apoyo is Spanish for our Spanish-speaking clients. We have a lot of clients who are going through very similar situations. A lot of it is bereavement, I have to say. And I will tell you parenthetically that we've experienced a lot of loss at Searching Care. In fact, our founding social worker, Sue Chandler, passed away in May, as well as several other clients who've been in nursing homes or at home care workers. And that's how they contracted COVID. And right now, I know a lot of us are finding it not just hard to deal with this, but how do we deal with loss? Normally, you would attend a memorial service. You would see a coffin going into the ground. You would get together with family and relatives and collectively mourn. How do we do this by Zoom? It's not at all the same. I attended a Jewish burial by Zoom. The rabbi facilitated it from his Mercedes-Benz with his phone. It was really fascinating, but there was no closure. On a happier note, Vocalese, I'll talk about that in a minute. We've had monthly concerts. Vocalese is a nonprofit group. It's a woman named Eva Swan who brings together Broadway professionals who sing with musical accompaniment. They sing a combination of hip Broadway show tunes and popular music from the 40s on up. It is probably, when we've had these in person, I call them the happy hour of the year. It's impossible not to do toe tapping, finger snapping. Everybody will love it. We're starting a Kindle Connection group. We've started to lend out Kindles. We're trying to take our clients from using cell phones one step up to being virtually connected. Most of our clients don't have the means to have a computer, never thought they were interested in it because they never understood how they could possibly use it and or afford it. It's not just purchasing the piece of equipment, it's the monthly charges, etc. So we're trying to make it one-stop shopping for our clients, and actually we foot the bill entirely. Our Kindles come with Wi-Fi. We have coaches who help them get on, and that's expanding their world. And what do people like to learn? Well, they like to learn things that are personal interest, whether it's, I want to see recipes from the South, which is where I grew up. I want to go shopping for, I need new slippers. I want to connect with my grandkids. You know, the whole scope of what we're all looking for. Some people love the museum virtual tours. I find that fascinating that you can go to Frida Kahlo's museum just from the very seat that I'm sitting in right now. Let's see, Client Advisory Committee. This is kind of interesting because we're privately funded, as I think I mentioned earlier, and our funders are always asking us, how do we know that these groups are really improving people's lives the way you say they are? We have our own Client Advisory Committee group. We're working with a researcher who is doing outcome studies, so we can actually say we help people this way. One of the things that we're most interested in is how we're really making these virtual connections. We had a one-off last week. It was an advocacy workshop. And we had some clients that have been part of our advocacy work. And hello, Lorraine, I know that you're listening. You may know her as Wilma. And we had a man join us for the first time who, after we were chatting, mentioned that he was very lonely, and that's what caused him to get involved with that particular workshop. And before you know it, our social workers were saying that they would call him afterwards, and clients actually lined up offering to call him weekly, as they do with their other friends, to try to bring him in, make him feel comforted. And that's really a beautiful thing. That's really what our goal is, to make our clients feel comfortable, to create communities where we can. Can I have the next slide, please, Will? Thank you, Will.
Which one is that one?
It's Vocalese. It's the
Vocalese,
December
okay.
17th.
Yeah.
Because I'm about to invite you all to something really special. This Thursday, there you go. Thank you so much. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it's telephonic. You don't need this computer to do it. There is a Vocalese bilingual holiday concert. It lasts half an hour. I think you will enjoy it. You will find recognizable songs. It may take you back in time, but I can promise you for that half an hour, it's probably like one of the best pills you will ever take. So I really want to thank you again for letting me join you tonight. I think that we've really been innovative in trying to assure people that we're still there for them in different ways. It's actually been more work than we've ever done before. We're still helping people financially. We're still helping people remain in the community. We're still helping people deal with their mental health issues, whether it's a grandfather, a man who's a grandfather who's living at home with his wife, who was literally Velcro to him as she's dementing, and their middle-aged son, who's now divorced and has been dealing with bipolar disease all his life, is off his meds and returns home and totally upsets what was a very delicate balance to begin with. And now they have the worry of the son coming in and out. Is he going to bring home this virus? So how does this older man deal with his child, who's an adult actually, non-compliant? And I would probably reach out to Dr. Swift, and I have in situations like that. And we have to get in a mobile crisis team who really is focused on the person with the mental health problem, not so much the father who's ripping his hair out thinking, how do I take care of my wife and my son who just will not grow up? That was a really bad recipe. So then we also have a mother who's in her early 60s. When she was in early 40s, she had her last youngest child who's in his 20s, who's tried to commit suicide twice. All of the family is very involved with this young man who really just cannot find his footing. And all of this stew is just worsened by what's happening in the outer world as people are afraid to go out. So we understand how to bring services into people's homes, trying to comfort them as best we can. We incorporate a lot of help from Dr. Swift, Metropolitan Hospital where we can, other health providers in the community, the Martha Stewart Clinic, for example, the Wright Center, who are very geriatric oriented. And together we try to make a community and try to give some positivity for tomorrow. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Robin.
Thank you.
May I just say a couple of things to add to Robin? I went, because of preparing for this meeting, I was invited to the reading room and I went thinking I would go just as an observer. It is great. I ended up, somebody read us a story. We are going to be reading a Henry James book, I forget what, in January, I forget which one. But we talked on the Zoom and it was just a lovely, what was it, an hour or 45 minutes or something like that. It was absolutely, and this is the type of services that they have.
I have one more that I forgot that's really, really important. And I will, you may have a slide for this. It's called Talking It Out. And it sounds so simple, but it's so important. As Dr. Swift knows, there are so many people whose anxieties are their nemesis. And in this pandemic, it's very hard to find people who will listen to you complaining, right? So we know that there are people who really need an ear. And that's what this service is for. Whatever you want to talk about, whether it's 15 minutes or a half an hour, it is free. All of our services are free. You will talk to a licensed MSW, that is a social worker with a graduate degree, who is trained with a great ear, no judgment whatsoever. If that will help you or someone you know, have them call us and ask for Talking It Out. It's exactly that. Thank you so much. Didn't want to forget that.
Thank you. That sounds like an important thing.
It is.
I have questions. Rebecca, do you want to see if people have questions or hands up or?
We have Lori from our board.
Do you want to just quickly remind everybody how they, or do you want me to?
Yeah, you could do it.
You can.
Okay. So if it's anybody's first time at one of our Zoom meetings, you'll just need to open the participants box at the bottom of your screen. So you'll click the button that says participants, and then you'll see a little box that'll pop open, and then there's a raise hand button that you just click the little raise hand, your name will go up on our list, and then Rebecca and Barbara will be able to call on you as your hand goes up.
Thank
And
you.
if you're on the phone, it's *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute yourself whenever we get to that point.
You want to unmute Lori?
Yes.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Lori.
I want to thank both of you so much. I am dealing now with many of the exact situations that you have described with my parents, but unfortunately they live in Westchester. So I just want to ask you if you know of any, umbrella organizations that can deal with them in Westchester, because I'm not going to give you all the individual, things, but it's like my mom's beginning to have dementia. My father is incredibly depressed and has been experiencing the physical symptoms, and he's treating the physical symptoms, but that's not where he should be doing it. And then I have the bipolar adult brother. So it's the full service. But do you know of any resources in Westchester that I can contact?
Westchester Medical Center is putting together a lot of new services around COVID. And I actually live in Westchester, and I'll be happy to talk to you offline about what other things might be available.
Oh, that would be great.
For some resources for you.
Thank you
Would
so
mind
much.
If I give Lori your
welcome.
number, it's okay if I give Lori your number?
Yes, it's
I will.
absolutely fine.
Lori,
Thank you so much, Dr.
so lucky
Swift.
that they have Lori.
Welcome.
She's an amazing daughter.
Thank you, Barbara. And thank you, Robin. And thank you, Dr. Swift. It's like, I can't articulate how important this is to me.
I think it's important to every one of us, because you know what? There's not a single human being who isn't suffering from this in some way. And I don't want to end on a negative note, but one of the things that's really important is people can get really depressed during this time with isolation and things like that. And there are some very simple things we can do to prevent tragedies like suicide. And one of them is get everything out of your medicine cabinet. Don't keep old meds that you're never going to use. Make sure you don't have excessive amounts of alcohol, because alcohol and medications is a horrible combination. And lock up whatever weapons you can. In having talked to, over the course of my career, many people who have lived through attempting suicide, what they'll tell you is if the means hadn't been there, it wouldn't have happened. So if we make it harder, if we take away the immediate means, that gives a person a chance to at least think it through. And that's very, very important. And again, to get help, I agree with you. People don't want to seek out help. They want the family to take care of them. But sometimes the problems are beyond what the family is really capable of doing.
Right.
It's important to recognize that, because you can become a full-time caretaker and all it does is drag other people down, because you know you're not being as effective as you'd like to be, because it's not possible for anyone without training to do that.
Right, right. Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Next, we have Brian.
There it is. Okay. Hi, this message is for, this question's more for Dr. Swift. First of all, I appreciate, your presentation and just kind of identifying this, the population that we're talking about today and the effects of mental health. And I know this may be a little premature question, and I'm asking just for the more clinical background, but so obviously we know that the vaccine has been distributed to each state.
Yes.
The governor has released, very limited information, with how the distribution is going to work in New York State and New York City especially. Other than there are 90 sites that were identified throughout the state. And first and foremost, it's going to be high-risk healthcare workers, which I'm not sure what that means, as well as those who live in, frontline, got it. And those that work inside home health. So I guess my question related to the topic today is, when do you foresee, and based on the knowledge that you can or cannot share, when this population in our community can receive the vaccine or will be eligible to receive the vaccine?
Well, I know that we're going to start offering it as soon as we can, as soon as we take care of the people who work within the hospital and certain high-risk populations that have been identified, and then it's going to be open to the public. Believe it or not, there are not as many people as you would think who want to take the vaccine. Some people are still very, very reluctant. So I think it will be available in our communities in not that long. So I have a lot of hope for that.
Yeah. So again, I'm asking from a personal or professional, standpoint or whatever, do you have any thoughts on a timeline that you would like to share?
I really don't have a timeline, because I think at this point, we don't know how many vaccines are going to be becoming available relatively soon. The Moderna vaccine is probably going to come online. There are others. We don't know how much exactly is going to come to New York of the Pfizer vaccine. But what I can tell you is that it will be distributed fairly and equitably to all populations. And I think that's very important. There's a very big commitment to that. So I think we can say that our population will get it as soon as everybody else gets it. And unfortunately, I wish there was enough to go around and we could give it to everybody right away. But unfortunately, that's not the reality.
Gotcha. Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
May I just say something? I haven't even talked to Rebecca or the committee yet, but I think what may be important for our committee is to pretty soon have a meeting about trying to promote the lack of fear for it, the reasons we should
Yes.
have it, and maybe start. And I don't know if it would be a psychiatrist that would work. I guess it would be more of the medical staff that would be the ones to talk about it. Would you agree, Johnny? Yeah.
I would say that somebody who's really knowledgeable about the side effects, about the reactions that people can have, because one of the things that has really concerned a lot of people and made them very reluctant to be willing to take the vaccine is, oh, we heard that there could be terrible side effects, and the number of people that have had those is very small, and yet it's getting blown out of proportion to what the reality is. So I think it's important perhaps to get the real statistics out there, and the fact that everybody's going to be watched for 15 minutes. If you're going to have a severe reaction, you're going to have it in those 15 minutes. So we're trying to be very, very proactive about that. And also, perhaps we need some champions from the community who can be leaders and talk about having gotten it. People that people trust. And I think that's a very, very important aspect of it.
I agree.
Yeah, I think we'll definitely do something like that and include a question and answer session, because I know with contact tracing that definitely helped.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. But people that people recognize as living in their community and being a part of their community.
Yes, I agree. We will have to talk about that, but it's something I've been thinking about for the last couple of days. Rebecca, is there more hands?
Yeah, well, let's, Wilma.
*6 to unmute Wilma.
She often has trouble.
There she is.
Good.
Good evening, everybody. This is Wilma Levine, and I would especially like to thank Dr. Swift and Robin. Robin, I had no idea. I'm so happy to learn about the deep information that you gave of each group that you had. And I would like to be involved in some other groups. I'm already involved in some of them, but this is very exciting to know that I can plan my week according to all the activities. And as far as the information that Dr. Swift gave about Metropolitan Hospital, I go there to a couple of clinics, and I didn't know that they had all the services that they do have. I'm learning more and more every day, becoming more involved in Metropolitan, because I think this is very important for this community to be in a place that's close to home. And the closest hospital that we really have is Metropolitan Hospital. I live in St. Isaac, so I'm closer to Metropolitan. And the information I was given this evening is so much. I do a lot of things down that I'm interested in, and I do intend to speak to Rob more about the different groups that he has, and also to get in touch with Dr. Smith about the different programs that might help me at Metropolitan. Thank you so much for all the information. And I was so happy that I was able to be here this evening.
Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. And you made my night by saying how much it helped you.
Yes.
Yeah, and before I call on Alita, maybe we can circulate this information in our weekly newsletter, if that's something you guys would be okay with, so that we can spread the word to more people.
100%. Anything you want to use is fine.
Okay, great. So
Absolutely.
next we have, great, thank you. Next we have our chair, Alita Camp.
Thank you, Rebecca. I just wanted to say thank you so much, Dr. Swift and Robin. Your information was not only informative, but uplifting and valuable. So not only should it go out in the newsletter, but I would urge this committee to put it on their committee page on our website so that people can have access to it all of the time. I also wanted to say, you guys are such good role models that if this program could be rolled out all around, I mean, the programs that you're talking about all around the country, that would be a good thing. And Dr. Swift, Barbara has always talked so highly of Metropolitan Hospital. I could see why.
Thank you.
And then last, Robin, you had mentioned closure for people who have passed away. CB8 is we're presenting a memorial program on Thursday afternoon at 4. Rebecca Dangor and I have been working hard on it.
Nice.
And we have about 8 or 9 different churches whose clergy members will speak. We have some members of the board, some elected officials, and we're asking anyone if they would like any names recited to just send them to me. And we will recite them. We're also planning some kind of document to be created afterwards with the statements that people mention at the memorial program. We thought it was time to have some kind of recognition of all the lives that have been lost and the loss suffered.
That is so brilliant.
Yeah, thank you, Alita. I was going to mention that we're having memorial for it. Thank you, Alita, for saying that.
Thank you, Barbara, for allowing it. It's we've gotten very good feedback from the churches that we've contacted, from elected officials and from members of the public. So I hope that people can join and find some comfort in it.
Oh, I just want to mention while I see all these faces here that we actually had a rescue mission. We had to rescue Thanksgiving this year because the church that would normally do it for us, Holy Trinity and St. Joe's, canceled because of COVID. So at the last minute, we were actually able to get a local senior center to donate the meals. And then the question was, how do we deliver it? And to my happy surprise, representatives from 4 of our local churches came forward to do this. I mean, at the last minute, I didn't think people would want to. And I want to salute Margaret and Grace, who are with us tonight. I see your faces. Thank you so much. It was really heroic of you to do it and really worthwhile for our clients who received the meal. Thank you.
Oh my God.
And I'm sure it was uplifting to the people who got it.
Totally. Made it wasn't just the day. It's their outlook.
Exactly.
Wow, this is great. I'm going to ask Dr. Swift a question.
Sure.
And I'm hoping to phrase it and not be too personal about it. I think that many of us, including me, but women I talk to, my friends that are also seniors and mature people, we talk to each other when we're very low, and we all are anxious and petrified. And what do you do about it? Isn't that normal? And is there, I mean,
it's a question of degree.
With it, or, well, I think the degree is, I mean, I think it's normal degree, except that many of us, we've had medical issues that we never had before. And I do think there's some connection. Maybe also, I haven't been on a treadmill in 10 months, and I think it's having the effect. I also eat more cookies. That may happen.
Well, if you're in the house, I think these are the kinds
I say I deserve it.
people are struggling with. No, you're absolutely correct. And these are things I've heard from many, many people. And it's a question of degree. And when you should try to talk to people about more uplifting topics. Think of other.
My daughter tells me, she says, all you talk about is COVID.
Well, but I certainly understand that. But on the other hand, you can also have phone conversations about fun things. Do you have hobbies that you enjoy doing? Can you talk about that? Can you engage some other people in joining you in those hobbies? And to be honest, also sometimes medications really do help. I'm a big believer that psychopharmacology has its place. It's not for everyone, but if somebody is really suffering with symptoms, psychopharmacology has a place to just take the edge off and not have one think about all the negative things and not any of the positive things. So I think all of those are important. And as you're talking about, people are not exercising. It's not just you. not exercising as much. I was talking to somebody earlier today who talked about having bought a Peloton months ago, and it was supposed to be delivered this week, and all their plants are shut down. So she tried to make provisions for the winter rather than running outside, but that just didn't happen. So there are all kinds of things. And when we all sit around, if there are good cookies around, unfortunately, I think it's human nature that we overindulge. So these are the kinds of things that I think you can't beat yourself up too much about that. And the other thing is you take the precautions. You wear a mask, you wash your hands, you use hand sanitizer, and you eat outdoors. I have to say, I've eaten many meals outside where it's cold, but there's much less chance of communicating the bacteria, any of the virus that way. So I think these are all things that we need to try to do. And the other thing is, with the vaccine being here, I really believe it's going to finally change the direction of all of this. So hopefully we've been through the worst and we'll see the light at the end of the tunnel. I think we have to have a positive view of this, and maybe it opens people up to some new experiences. Robin brought up some wonderful, wonderful things.
Right.
Can't people read books online with each other? Mm-hmm. Have a book club online.
Right.
Something
that's true. And I did do it, and it was a lovely hour. I think it was an hour, Robin, wasn't it? It was, I think it went over. Actually, it was more than it was supposed to be because we were all chatting.
But really, you could be the organizer of something like that.
Well, no, Search and Care was, so that makes it even easier.
Right. But what I'm saying is we need to think outside of the box. Mm-hmm. We need to be open, all of us, and this applies to everyone. We all stay within our comfort zone. Sometimes it's important to get out of your comfort zone a little bit and try new things. And that's how we connect with each other. And if you know your daughter is uncomfortable with your constantly talking about COVID, be aware of that and talk about some other things. Have in your head what you're going to talk about that day.
Right.
The kinds of practical suggestions and practical things that we all can do to make life better for each other. Right.
And I have to hope that we're able to go back and be the social beings that we are without the fear that we're all hoping for that. We're all hoping for that. And I think we're at a point when it can turn around now. With the vaccine, I really believe it can turn around. I do too. Good. What's very interesting about senior mental health is it crosses all economic barriers. And I have to
100%.
assume that there are different barriers for people who are food deprived and worried about being evicted and so on. That do you hear that at all? And would you want to talk about? Sure. We definitely hear that. We know in East Harlem, this is unfortunately a constant struggle for many of the people in our community. In addition to that, they are taken advantage of by the drug dealers that have their, quote, businesses in this area. We've seen more drinking, we've seen more drug use, we've seen worse drugs than we've seen in a very, very long time. And so physical health is worse. We don't even know what we're treating sometimes because the patient doesn't know what they took. And that's reality, because you buy something on the street, you have no idea what it is. And the other thing that a lot of people believe is there's quality control. So if I bought a bag of something yesterday and I didn't get a very big buzz out of it, tomorrow I'll buy 2 more from the same person, but I'm going to take both of them at the same time. And one of the things you have to realize is there is no quality control. You take 2 bags this time and you're in the emergency room and you're totally hallucinating and violent and all kinds of terrible things are happening to your body. And people don't really understand that. They look to the drugs for comfort.
And we have to just keep educating our population that there are other ways to be involved in the community and other things that they can do. I know that there are some of the organizations that are taking groups, or before COVID, were taking groups of people to Costco so they can have a different shopping experience than the bodega. Open the world to different kinds of things. And that's something that an individual could work on with another group of individuals. And having talked to some of the people who were a part of that, it was like a whole new world. We all think of Costco and those big stores as something you can go to if you want to, but for the people of East Harlem who don't even really know how to travel, and I know Search and Care does a lot with travel. I know we at the hospital do a lot with teaching people how to travel independently, what resources are out there, how to enrich their lives. And this is what we have to focus on. And that not only gives pleasure to the person we're helping, but it gives pleasure to us.
Mm-hmm.
Make us feel that we have done something to help another human being.
I think it's very important at this time. Rebecca, does anybody else?
Yeah, Lori has another question.
Sure.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to monopolize the conversation, but I actually, first of all, I wanted to concur with what Dr. Swift said about psychopharmacology is incredibly useful. I have multiple sclerosis. So I've had it for like 20 years. And a really long time ago in our group, we decided that, we have a self-help group, and we all decided that, dealing with this disease, it's like everybody needs a happy pill. So like all of us have like, gotten our individual, things, and it's, so I just wanted to share that. It's like, that's what you do. That's what it's for. That's what drugs are for. And, if it helps you, it's a good thing. But I wanted to ask Robin, and this is just out of my curiosity, when you went down the list of the activities, you had one that was called the newsroom, and
Yes.
you skipped over that. What is that? I just asked that because, I have a lot of experience.
I'm happy to tell you about that, because it's actually was the first quote unquote chat group we had. It started as an in-person meeting for people who wanted to talk about what was happening currently. The majority of our participants are from East Harlem in that group. And what they're talking about now is what they've been talking about for weeks, which is the political climate.
Oh.
It is a way to vent about what they're hearing about, what they think, what they believe are truths, which may be myths, but it's all that big stew. It's like talking it out about what's happening. And that out of that, an interesting thing has come about out of that. We have our own advocacy group, a group of clients who are actually learning how to be activists. I know some of you know very well what that means. It can sometimes mean joining elected officials when they're protesting about something that you share in common. Well, what did this group do, the advocacy group? They wrote postcards during this election.
Oh.
They helped people get absentee ballots. And the social worker from Search and Care who started it literally went and helped by picking up people's absentee ballots and delivering them to their local polling places on the election day so that their ballots would literally be counted and safely distributed.
Oh, that's great. That's
Yep.
great.
So if
Thank
any of you want to become more involved, you already are in a very big way, but we're happy to have you join us for any of the groups that we've talked about. Or maybe you may even think about a group you yourself might like to lead. We're open.
Was everybody on the same political spectrum?
Predominantly, yes. Oh, yes.
The one
Oh,
that
yes. But I just want to share one request. I am so tired of hearing about people say we pivoted, which means that, you know what that means, that we were able to overcome that challenge. Can we please find another word for pivot? It's beginning to drive me a little bit nutty here. Thank you. Just my personal opinion.
Go to ballet.
We do need to emphasize that people made a difference. People of East Harlem and communities like East Harlem made a really big difference in the political landscape. And I think that's something that when we remind the people who live here about that, they actually feel good about. And that they can take pride in, that people did do advocacy for whatever they believe in. They've worked really hard to make it happen. And I think they don't get enough recognition for how much the grassroots effort made a difference in many communities like this.
Well, in full disclosure, I personally am a public member of CB8M, and I have to say that my sisters and brothers there are really advocates every day. There's a lot that goes on in that community. It's a community that was targeted by so much big business and something that's been ongoing for too long a period of time, which is 125th Street Corridor. I think my committee chair, Nye, is maybe listening tonight. And my colleagues are actually, with the help of some of our electeds, we're saying enough. So I think that I'm learning through my participation and what you already know as CB8 members, just how important voices can be heard through the community board. And I want to thank you all.
And it can help you. Actually, I want to thank Rebecca and I want to thank Nye for coming. We had a conversation and want to work together. So Nye, thank you very much for coming tonight and hearing that. Rebecca?
Yeah, no, I do have one question before we end. And earlier, Dr. Swift, when you were speaking about kind of the fact that this environment has led to an uptick in abuse of our elder relatives, what signs should people who aren't able to visit their family members really anymore be on the lookout? What should they be asking them on the phone or trying to double check?
I think you want to ask them if they've been hurt at all. You want to make sure, how are your meals? Are you eating your meals? How's the staff? Do you have a particular staff member that you like? Is there anyone there you don't like? Is there a reason you don't like them? Just open-ended, broad conversations. And if you can see them, that definitely helps. Because I think when you see them, a picture is worth 1,000 words, and you can get the feeling about how things are going for them. And it is really important to ask about that. And the other place it's important to ask about is children, because teachers are often the ones who are noticing if there's abuse or neglect. It's very important if there are children in your neighborhood that you notice that maybe there's a problem. So we all have a much greater responsibility to each other and to our communities than we did before, because there's a lot less, unfortunately, a lot fewer people out there who can recognize these things. And that's a wonderful, wonderful question, because for example, in developmentally disabled people, we have to ask a whole different set of questions. It's about the sorts of things we might ask somebody who has a normal intellectual ability. They might say, all of a sudden they stop talking about a caregiver that they had at the facility, or they don't like this person anymore. And being able to pursue those kinds of things, because that's another population, anybody who's in any kind of an institutional setting can be victimized. And as hard as we try to do as best a job we can screening, it's still a reality. But you have different questions to get to understand what's going on with that person. And that can be the first sign of depression. They used to be so excited when their favorite worker came in. Now they barely notice. Well, why did that change? What happened? What is it that we can do? And the other point I really want to make is that a lot of times people don't think of mental illness as an illness. It is no different than any other illness than cancer, hypertension, diabetes. All of those are illnesses of an organ, and the brain is an organ. So why would that not get sick just like everything else? It's not a character flaw. It's not a weakness. It's an illness. And we all accept that all of us have illnesses.
What would you do? Then what if you suspect your parent or somebody, a friend, is being abused in a nursing home or with a caretaker? What would you do about it? Who would you call?
I think there are agencies, Adult Protective Services. We've certainly called Adult Protective Services in situations like that where we have some concerns that somebody's coming in and they don't want to talk, or they're being brought in by somebody else who will not let them speak to us alone. That's often a real telltale sign of abuse or human trafficking. We're seeing human trafficking, all those kinds of things. You have to know what the warning signs are for that, but Adult Protective Services is definitely willing to get involved, and Children's Services, certainly they're involved, and there's no liability. If you report in a good faith effort, no, I think sometimes people are afraid to report because they're afraid they're going to get in trouble. And the truth is, you don't get in trouble. All you can do is help. And if you think somebody is really being abused or hurt or whatever, it's incumbent upon all of us to take care of that person.
Thank you. And then my second question is, have you seen or do you believe that the factors of COVID, the isolation, the change in lifestyle has led to a increase in severity of Alzheimer's cases that might have just been starting before the pandemic? Or
we don't really have any great data on that, but one would certainly think it puts more of a stress and a strain, because quite honestly, I don't know anybody who's not had this affect their life in some way. And so to the extent that that's true, that you have to change your lifestyle, or you're responsible for so many more things. You know, it used to be you wanted to go get some groceries, you go to the grocery store whenever you feel like going to the grocery store. Now it's everybody plans, and I can tell you, I live in Westchester. On Sunday morning at 7 a.m., the whole parking lot was filled because everybody's trying to go when there's not too many people there. So it impacts everything, and all of these things are additive. So with somebody who's beginning to have issues with memory and things like that, especially if they become depressed, sometimes you can't even tell dementia from depression. People can really look clinically the same, and you have to make some very careful distinctions to sort those two out. And that's very important because the treatment is very different.
Isolation also, I assume, causes more memory loss and disorientation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why engaging the brain in something like even doing crossword puzzles or word searches or anything like that, that lets you use your mind in a way that's a little bit different, is very, very helpful with keeping people reality oriented, keeping people on track to feel like they're meaningful. I think the loss of purpose that I've heard from people around COVID has been in ways the worst. The just loss of purpose and loss of value in what they can contribute in any given situation.
Good point.
So do you see we have another question from Wilma?
*6 to unmute Wilma.
Hello. I'm going to ask the doctor a question at the flip.
Yes.
It seems like since I'm so depressed now, that I'm in more pain. And I was wondering, is it because Am I really in pain, or is it because I'm so depressed that I'm in pain?
Well, you know, it can be
So
a combination of both. And that's what I'm saying. That's why it's so important to take care of your mental health, because sometimes if you take care of your mental health, the pain that you experience goes away. And we don't know why that happens, but there are a lot of people for whom their physical pain is the way they express psychological issues. And so it's very important to be open to that. And a lot of the medications that we prescribe are medications that do work on pain. Now, what mechanism they work through is still somewhat controversial, and I don't talk to people necessarily about the fact that they're depressed. I try to talk to them about what they're not able to do. And somebody who says that, oh, I'm not able to do my knitting anymore because my hands, I have more arthritis, and it hurts when I do it, and I can't eat with people anymore. I'm just so embarrassed about how slowly I eat. But all of those can be signs of depression. And if you get rid of the depression, you're going to get rid of the things that go with it.
Well, thank you. I got this 500-piece puzzle, and I put the whole thing together, and then there was going to be one piece missing at the end of the 500-piece puzzle. I have 499 pieces. That was so frustrating. I just don't know. I was so angry. I didn't know how to control the anger that I had for that one piece missing.
I can understand.
And I worked so hard on that puzzle, and then the one piece is missing. So then I just said, forget it. I put it on the side, and I said that I have cardboard. I'm a creative piece. And if somebody says, what's wrong with that piece? I said, well, that's the missing piece. That there was a game to it. Find the missing piece puzzle, and that's the one I put there. Because there's no other way for me to deal with that missing piece.
It's great that you're doing that. 500-piece puzzles are wonderful.
It is.
And what some people sometimes do is cut the piece out of the box that you've lost.
That's what I'm going to do for that lost piece. I got to create my own piece.
Right.
Create your own
It didn't come to me until a couple of days later. And then I solved my own problem. And it made me feel much better.
I think that your cat hit it on you.
Yeah, I think she ate it.
Or ate it, I was going to say.
You know, Lorraine, I know you as Lorraine. I see so many of our clients struggling with a very similar thing, and it's often called control. And at the end of the day, how little control do we really have, you know? So I'm fortunate. I think I have some optimism in my DNA, and I'm looking forward to tomorrow because we're going to get tons of snow. And that always makes me happy because it takes me back to a happier time. And I think all of us can really benefit from thinking about happier times because we've had them before. And we will definitely have them again as long as we continue to ride this out. Is that correct, Dr. Swift?
Absolutely.
That makes sense. Yes, it does.
But meanwhile, the anger level is much higher now. We hear people just blow up on the street for no reason at all. And of course, the rise in crime is just scary and heartbreaking. And I think it's just that people are losing it, and the anger is just very high.
I think that that's true, and it's very, very depressing to hear about that day after day in terms of what we are seeing. And there's no good explanation for it except people have no outlets. If they used to go to a movie, a lot of people, that was their outlet. They'd go out to dinner. That was their outlet.
That's true.
Just don't have the same kinds of outlets. So we have to create our own. and create new memories about what we can do. But it's certainly depressing to see what is going on in the world around us. And also people are more fearful, to be honest. I've heard people talk about that's why they want to move out of New York and they want to move to the suburbs and all kinds of things like that. But the truth is there's no real panacea. You have to find it within yourself and create new experiences for yourself that are meaningful and connect with new people.
Great advice. Rebecca, any?
Well, if we don't have any other questions, I do have a piece of old business. It's just a small announcement I wanted to make sure to remind everyone, which is that on December 11th, I believe, the Contact Tracing Confidentiality Act was officially sent for signature to the governor. And the deadline for his signature is 12/23, so 2 days before Christmas. I know I said this at a previous meeting recently, but if this is something you care about, I really encourage you to call the governor and beg him to sign. And I will keep bringing this up until I see it happen.
I think we need a mix of it. This is something that I think your advocacy group, Robin, can certainly be part of. Our committee has done, and Alita was the chair of it, has done a series of Zoom meetings on contact tracing, and one was on privacy. Just a question: where does your data go, and what can happen to it? And there has been a bill that's gone through, and that's what Rebecca is talking about. If you want us to coordinate with you on advocacy and talk about it, Rebecca would be a great talker.
I'd be happy to put our social worker, Joe Di Benedetto, in connection with you, Rebecca. Thanks so much. That's a great idea.
That's great. Thank you, Rebecca. Well, I just want to thank you both so much. This is has been such a wonderful meeting, and I think has given us all some hope and such wonderful things, and just nice to be around people that are caring and care about each other and get uplifted because of something good that we do for our human beings. And I thank you both so much, and everybody else that was here.
Thank you for organizing this, and
you're welcome.
Us. Oh, here's Robin and her cat.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. We really do appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having us.
Participating. Thank you. And thanks to everyone who's come. And just a reminder, if you have a friend that you might want to watch this meeting, it's on YouTube. So the links will be up on our website, and feel free to share.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Everybody have a good holiday. Be safe.
Have a great holiday
Absolutely.
too.